No one is more enslaved than the one who falsely believes they are free. These words, written nearly 2 centuries ago by Goethe, may sound like poetry from the past. But what if they describe your life today? We like to think of ourselves as living in a free society. After all, the West hasn't turned into the kind of nightmare George Orwell imagined in 1984. We don't see Big Brother on every street corner. But here's the uncomfortable question: are we really free? Or are we trapped in a more subtle prison, one we don't even notice? Imagine a world where people don't need to be controlled with chains or violence. Instead, they're distracted, entertained, and lulled into submission by endless pleasure. Sounds extreme. That's exactly the world Aldous Huxley described in Brave New World. When the book came out in 1931, Huxley didn't think this pleasure-based dystopia was an immediate danger. But just 30 years later, after World War II and the rise of totalitarian regimes, his perspective changed. By 1961, Huxley was warning that future rulers wouldn't need whips or prisons to control us. They'd just need to flood us with entertainment, drugs, and distractions. And here's the chilling part: he believed most people would happily go along with it. But how exactly can pleasure, something we all chase, become the very tool that takes away our freedom? That's where psychology comes in. To answer this, we need to look at an idea called operant conditioning, a method of shaping behavior pioneered in the 20th century. Harvard psychologist B.F. Skinner ran famous experiments with rats. When the animals performed a desired behavior, he rewarded them with food. When they misbehaved, he punished them with pain. The shocking result: punishment worked quickly, but rewards, pleasure, were far more powerful in the long run. With positive reinforcement, he could reshape behavior almost permanently. Now pause for a second. If rewards can make a rat change its behavior, what happens when those same principles are applied to millions of humans? That was the disturbing question Huxley asked. He saw the future not as a boot stamping on the human face forever like Orwell imagined, but as a velvet cage, one lined with comfort, entertainment, and dopamine hits. And that's only the beginning. In Huxley's Brave New World, the most powerful weapon of control wasn't fear. It was pleasure. The rulers didn't need prisons, secret police, or firing squads. Instead, they had something far more seductive, a miracle drug called soma. Take a pill, and suddenly your stress melts away. A higher dose. Blissful dreams, another vivid hallucinations. Whatever you wanted, soma gave it. No pain, no anxiety, no reason to rebel. Now imagine, what if the very thing that makes you feel good was also the chain that kept you obedient? That's the genius and the horror of Huxley's vision. But soma was just the start. From childhood, citizens were conditioned with a chilling mantra: everyone belongs to everyone. Monogamy, gone. Family bonds erased. Instead, sexual freedom was not only encouraged, it was demanded. Why? Because constant pleasure leaves no room for deep connection or dangerous questions. Add to this the endless flood of state-approved entertainment. Huxley called it a storm of incessant and fascinating distractions. Movies, games, diversions, always something new to keep your mind too busy to notice the invisible cage around you. Think about it. When was the last time you sat in silence alone with your thoughts without reaching for your phone? That uncomfortable itch to check, to scroll, to consume. It's not so different from the citizens of Huxley's world. Here's the twist: back in 1931, all of this sounded like science fiction. But by the 1950s, Huxley was already seeing shadows of his nightmare in the real world. In his book, Brave New World Revisited, he warned that societies might soon use pleasure, not pain, as their primary form of social control. And that raises a dangerous question for us today. Are we living in the world Huxley feared? Because if you look around, the parallels are hard to ignore. Fast forward to today, you might think Huxley's dystopia was just a novel, a dark fantasy. But look closer. His warnings feel eerily familiar. 1 in 6 Americans now relies on some form of psychiatric drug to cope with daily life. Entire communities are being devastated by the opioid epidemic, pills that promise relief but leave behind chains of addiction. At the same time, the internet offers instant, endless access to sexual gratification. Millions are caught in the grip of pornography addiction, trading real intimacy for fleeting dopamine hits. Just like in Brave New World, pleasure becomes the perfect distraction, and then there's the little glowing screen in your pocket. Smartphones, social media, notifications. Think about it. How many times today have you checked your phone without even realizing it? These devices are designed to hijack your attention, drip-feeding you tiny hits of validation, likes, comments, endless scrolling. Now pause and ask yourself, is this really freedom? Or is it a digital leash, one you voluntarily keep charged, polished, and in your hand at all times? Huxley predicted it perfectly. A society drowning in distractions doesn't need to be forced into submission. We willingly give up our clarity, our focus, our autonomy for the next little surge of pleasure. And here's the frightening part. The more advanced technology becomes, the more precise the conditioning gets. Every swipe, every click, every search is tracked, studied, and used to predict your next move. You're not just a consumer, you're a subject in the biggest psychological experiment in history. But this leads us to a critical turning point. If Huxley was right, do we even want to resist? Because as long as comfort is easy and pleasure is abundant, most people will happily trade their freedom for convenience. If the trends continue, humanity may soon split into two groups. On one side, those who accept their pleasant servitude, people who trade away their freedom for entertainment, comfort, and the illusion of happiness. They'll never question the system because why would they? Their needs are met, their cravings satisfied, their minds too distracted to rebel. On the other side, the few who resist. Not because it's easy, but because they value something deeper: clarity, autonomy, and the raw experience of being human. These are the ones who will endure discomfort, silence, and even suffering if it means keeping their freedom intact. So here's the uncomfortable question: which side will you choose? History has already given us a warning. Frederick Douglass, a man who escaped slavery and became a fierce abolitionist in the 19th century, put it bluntly. When a slave becomes a happy slave, he renounces everything that makes him human. That's the danger Huxley saw. The moment we embrace our own chains disguised as pleasures, we stop living as free human beings. But there's hope. Awareness is the first step. When you see the cage, you can start looking for the key. The Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca spent their lives training the mind to resist temptation, distraction, and fear. They believed true freedom isn't about what's outside of you, but what's inside: mastery over your own desires. And maybe that's the only path forward. To resist, not by rejecting pleasure altogether, but by refusing to be ruled by it. To reclaim focus in a world that thrives on stealing it. To choose meaning over mindless comfort. Because in the end, the greatest question isn't whether Huxley was right. It's whether you will wake up and see the velvet cage or fall asleep inside it smiling. What do you think? Do you see signs of this brave new world around you today? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you found value in this reflection, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring these ideas together.